This video is brought to you by my patrons and by viewers like you. Greetings, groovy people. Welcome to Blue Dragon Art. I am the self-proclaimed Blue Dragon. This channel talks about art-related topics, primarily my own personal projects, but a myriad of other, independent art, comic-related things, or just whatever interests me. In the background, I'm going to be working on probably my Dark Horse comic. It's a free, not safe for work, post-apocalyptic magical girl fantasy. I know that's a lot of tags, but I had a lot on my mind when I started writing this, and it seems to still be relevant. So, at any rate, that's probably what I'm working on in the background. There's probably also going to be, white noise in the background. It's summer, it's going to be 82 today, not as bad as it has been, not as bad as it will be, but I do have my fan on, so I apologize if that background noise is distracting. I also have the window open, so I'm sure there'll be noise coming from that, like the bus that just went by. So this video, I'm going to be talking about how I personally fix art block for myself. These are suggestions that if you have art block, maybe you can try these things. Obviously, I want to put a disclaimer up here because every human being is different. Everyone's minds work differently. What works for me may not work for you. And if these suggestions don't work for you, none of this is to be belittling you or saying, oh, it didn't work for you, there's something wrong with you. That's not what I'm saying here. These are just, it's kind of like when you're trying to troubleshoot a problem, you throw everything against the wall, and if you find things that work for you, then it might work for somebody else. So don't get a complex or anything if these suggestions that work for me don't work for you. You're just going to have to figure out what does work for you. And don't be shy. Try things out. It's okay to try things and then decide this isn't working, this isn't for me, this is not applicable. But if you just throw your hands up and don't even try, then how do you know? If you get what I'm saying. I mean, I know there are things that I like because I tried them, and I know there are things that I don't like because I've tried them and I don't like it. If I don't ever try it, then I probably won't know. Obviously, that doesn't count for everything on the planet, but I don't need to keep breaking down disclaimers. Let's get into this. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't often get art block, but when I do, I find that I sometimes have trouble identifying that I'm even in an art block. And this happened, I think I'd mentioned this in a video maybe not that long ago, but I was in an art block, and I feel like I'm trying to figure out, what is it exactly that happens when I get there? Why do I have this art block? If you can identify the source of the problem, then it might help you in fixing the issue. As an example, for me, the art block that I had was tied to my skill level and also the composition of the page. It was, a little too, it's good to challenge yourself, but it was definitely outside of my current skill level, what I was intending on doing. And the other thing was the composition. I wasn't really sure how to do it. I ended up going with a similar thing. Actually, what I did was once I identified what the problem was, I knew it was this page. I knew it was my lack of skill in drawing complex backgrounds and crowded scenes. So what I did, because I have to keep moving, I'm working on a webcomic and I was trying to get off of hiatus because readers, I as much as I know that I had to take care of my mental health, I also am a person who likes to respect my readers, and I have no problem going on hiatus when I need to, because I know that I gotta take care of myself if I'm going to continue working on comics. But at the same time, I also, as a reader of comics, want to respect people's time. And I know that the longer you stay away from your comic, sometimes the harder it is for readers to come back. Now, me, I like to read in chunks, so I'll disappear for long periods of time and then come back because I'll read an entire fucking chapter. There are some comics that I keep up with weekly, but for the most part, I like to read in chunks, which is kind of why I like hard copy stuff. I think it just, I don't know what it is. That's just kind of one of my personal tastes and preferences. But at any rate, I knew I had to keep moving forward. And because this was a puzzle that I needed time to think about and figure out how I was going to do that page and break that block, one of the things that I find when I have something that I don't want to draw that's really bothering me, because I thumbnail out ahead of time, I knew that there were pages coming up that I wanted to draw. And so when I have art block on something, it's not because I don't want to draw. I think it's because I'm frustrated with myself. I tried to draw something and I rage quit and I walk away. So what I personally did in this specific instance was skip ahead, and I know I mentioned this in another video, but I'm gonna go into other suggestions, don't worry. But I skipped ahead and I started drawing the things that I was looking forward to drawing, the things that I thought were really fun, the magical girl transformation, things that are still a challenge for me, but I find to be a little bit easier. It might not be perfect. You guys are going to see the upcoming pages that I worked on with the transformation, but I mean, I might not be as skilled as I would like to be, but I did find it a little easier to tackle, and solving the problem of how to draw the human figure a lot more fun than how to draw a crowded fucking scene with a building that I am not good with architecture. It's something that I've been having to force myself to try to draw so that I can get better at it and no longer have it be a block. But at this point, I didn't have a lot of time because of how busy things had been. I was finally starting to free up some time, and I couldn't allow myself to be blocked. I draw because it brings joy to me, so instead of fixating on this page, because I've been trying to build a buffer, I was like, okay, I'm going to skip ahead, and I'm going to draw what I want to draw. So how can that apply to you? If you're having difficulty with something that you're working on for a comic, or maybe something that you're working on, if it's like a static image, or not static, but like a single individual image, maybe you're an artist, you do like posters or character art or something like that, and so this specific case of being stuck on a comic page doesn't apply to you. My suggestion would be, if it's something that you're having a lot of trouble with, maybe doodle something that is more fun for you, things that you're more comfortable with, exercise that part of your brain, and then kind of build on that and try to tackle the thing that's giving you a problem after doing some things that are fun, if that makes sense. One of the other things that I do, which is not applicable for this specific instance because I was coming off of a break, but if I've been drawing too much and I'm not having fun and I'm not happy with my work and I don't want to draw, then I'll take a break and I'll work on something else. I'll get into my sketchbook, as I was saying, I'll do some sketches, or I'll thumbnail things, because then I'm still moving forward, I'm still doing something regarding my comic, but it might not necessarily be the thing that is stressing me out. When I'm sketching, it's a lot less loose, and when I'm thumbnailing, it's a lot less loose than having to make sure that you're doing something as precisely as you possibly can. I try to work to the best of my ability when I'm doing a comic page, but when I'm thumbnailing, it's like brainstorming, right? You're just brainstorming where you want to put things, and it can change. It's not something that's permanent, right? Well, I mean, not that any drawing is permanent, but you know what I mean. So that's something that I will sometimes do, is take a break, or I'll work on videos, or I'll record audio, or I'll clean the house, or that doesn't happen often. No, I'm just kidding. I do clean the house, but I'll do something else that needs to be done. Not because I have to stay productive all the time. I am someone that I really don't get bored. I have experienced boredom maybe once or twice this year because I'm usually pretty active. There's usually something that if I'm not doing one thing, I'm gonna go and do something else. I'll listen to music and do something in the house, or I'll do dishes or whatever, or I'll take the dog for a walk, go for a walk myself before we had a dog. Another dog, I should say, etc., etc. So taking a break is okay. If don't force it unless you absolutely have a deadline. If you're doing commissions, this maybe is not something that might work for you. Although still, I mean, even if you're doing commissions, it's okay to take a break. Maybe take a break for the day, maybe come back to it the next day, work on something else. I don't know. I don't want to get people in trouble with their paid work and stuff, but I'm just saying, if it's not fun and normally you derive fun from doing art, then take a little break from it, because then you can come back and you might be refreshed and you're like, oh, I'm ready to draw. I'm ready to work on this. I'm ready to tackle this problem. Sometimes you stare at a problem so incredibly long that you've got like kind of tunnel vision and you can't see what's on the outside of that problem that you could pull in to like fix that issue, if you get what I'm saying. Something else that I will sometimes do whenever I'm having a bit of an art block, or I'm just exhausted from drawing, or I don't feel like actually drawing and stuff, is that I will go back and I will reread my comic. Yes, I reread my comic. I'm kind of writing it for myself anyway. I'm sharing it with people, but this is a story that I really am writing so that when I complete it, I can go back and read it. Is that crazy? Is that arrogant? I don't care. I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's fine to like write the story that you want to see. It may not be everything. Maybe it's not even things that you necessarily agree with or whatever. But, it's an interesting story that you want to read and see. Then I don't see anything wrong with creating art and comic for yourself as well as for other people. If I'm stuck on a page and I'm not really, like, when I'm thumbnailing, for instance, I don't know how to thumbnail. Oh my god, I'm having issues figuring out how I want to lay this out. Well, I'll go back and reread my comic, or I'll go back and reread scripts that I have already written out, or I'll do both. If I'm really blocked and not having inspiration on continuing with what I'm working on, then sometimes it helps to kind of get back into it by reading the story so far, or reading where I want to go and seeing like scenes that I've written out that, oh, maybe I want to rewrite this scene, or oh my god, I cannot wait to draw that, so I need to kind of push through this so I can get to that. Another thing that I will do is sometimes I'll read my notes, especially if I'm working on my scripts and thumbnails. I need to figure out where I'm going and what things that I want to make sure, like I've got several notebooks of things that have to be done in the comic, things that I want to be done in the comic, things that I don't want to forget, things that I don't want to miss. And once I start doing that, I get that jolt of excitement again, and it's like, oh my god, I really want to work on this because this is where the story's going, and I can't wait to reveal this character, and I can't wait for this to happen, and I really am excited for this resolution. So doing that will sometimes like jog my inspiration and get me back on board with working on the comic and drawing and stuff like that. Another thing that I like to do is kind of rest and daydream. Okay, now I know that this is probably going to be insane sounding, but I guess I need to kind of preface this. I need to kind of paint a picture for y'all. When I was younger, and I still do, I have a very active imagination. I'm not just saying that to pat myself on the back, but living in the country where I had like my cousins to play with, I had two cousins that lived on the property where we lived, and I had my older sister. When I was really young, my older sister and I, we would play Barbies, or I'd play with my dinosaurs, or I would play with her, but she's about 4 years older than me, usually 4 years older than me. Part of the year she's only 3 years older than me. But she hit her teens sooner than I did, and we have very different interests and personality types. We have a lot of things now that we're older that we're both interested in, but the long and the short of it is, she and I had very differing personalities, and I was just the annoying... I became like the annoying tag-along, and she kind of wanted to do her own thing, which is fine, because she was a teenager. Everyone goes through the phase where they have their own thing that they want to do, and we were just so incredibly different, especially when I hit my teens. I went like the exact opposite direction that she did in interest and stuff. So the reason why I'm bringing that up, and again, my sister and I get along. We're fine. We have like a lot of common interests now that we realize, so this is just like kid stuff. Growing up in the country, my cousins weren't always available to play with. So I had to have a very active imagination to entertain myself, because I was a very physical kid. I liked climbing trees. I would walk along the railroad tracks. We'd go miles down the railroad tracks. When my cousins were, I would never do that alone. My mom wouldn't allow that. But my one cousin that I was a little closer with, because we were the two younger cousins, the two older ones kind of palled up for a while, and then the two younger ones, we that's, what we did. My cousin and I used to play things like Robin Hood, and I always had to be Robin Hood. She always got to be Maid Marian, and I had to be Robin Hood, which was fine because I liked Robin Hood. But, we would play these things in our imagination, and we would play for hours. But when she wasn't available, I had to entertain myself. My sister was kind of doing her own thing. My other cousin was kind of doing her own thing. I would run around the property pretending to be these characters and have these characters around me. Not my story specifically, but I'm saying this is what kind of led to how I write my comic. So I would have these little adventures in my head. Again, I know I'm probably sounding insane, but they felt real to me, because I could imagine them being there and I would do this, that, and whatever. So when it came to starting to write my comic, I would basically daydream. If I was in the shower, I would be thinking about the scenes and playing it out in my head. Now, some people have aphasia, I think is what it's called, so this is obviously not going to be applicable to you. Please don't take offense. I'm sorry. This is something maybe you can't do. Maybe it is. I don't know how that works, but obviously this is for people who have the capability to physically visualize shit in their head and see it. This is something that I would do to write my story. If I was between classes, or if I was just on my own on the weekend, or hell, whenever I was working as a janitor, I wrote so much of my story because I would work and I would have my headphones on, but I would be imagining, I would in my head be writing the story and picturing how things were going down, and then I would go back to the janitor closet and write it down, because my boss told me, don't ever clock out early. If you get done with your work early, sit in the closet, lock yourself in the closet, and don't clock out until the time you are allotted has timed out, because they're gonna fuck you over on your money, so you might as well fucking do something. So I would while I was working, have this shit going on in my head, and then I would go write down the ideas of this, that, and the other. So I would be visual, I'm physically present, I see what I'm doing, but I would also have this film in my mind kind of playing while I worked. I think it really stems back to having a very active imagination and playing things out in my mind as a kid. But that's something that I do whenever let's say I've reread my script and I'm not ready to write yet, but I'm excited about the story. I've stopped at my scripts at a specific chapter. I know how it's going to end. So what I'll do is I'll just sit and I'll daydream what's going to happen, and then I'll go and write that down. And usually by the time I'm done writing out a script or these ideas, these things that I want to happen, or these plot holes or problems that I've been able to kind of surmise by daydreaming and thinking about this shit, then I'll go and I'll write it down, and then that'll usually jog my excitement to work on the comic and make new pages. Does any of that make sense? Do I sound like a total whack job? Probably. It's okay. That's how I work, and I don't care. You can judge me all you want. I've had a lot of downtime in my life. Not downtime, but I've had a lot of times where I was in solitude. And so I had to keep myself entertained somehow. Although I was very active in college, but anyway. And then the last thing I have on here, but I have one bonus thing. I'll work on the script. As I was saying, I'll work on the script. I'll actually if I've reread it and that hasn't sparked my desire to draw, then I'll start actually scripting things out further so that I can get ahead in the comic. And usually by that point, I'll be sick of fucking writing and I'll want to actually do some drawing. Now, I want to kind of come back to that composition, the issue of skill and not liking the composition. Again, I know I already covered this or touched upon it in another video, I think when I was talking about how I was coming back off hiatus. But after doing all of these things, I knew that I had to come back and actually do that page, because there's no way I'm getting off hiatus if I don't draw the next fucking page, which is supposed to be posted to kick off getting off of hiatus. At that point, when I'd done things that I wanted to, and I knew I couldn't run from this any longer, that I needed to sit down and think about this problem, how I fixed my art block with that page was I sat myself down and I looked at it, and I forced myself to think about, why is this page stopping me? I had started working on it. I didn't like how things were laid out. My perspective fucking sucks ass. Why am I having a problem with this? I had I had to sit myself down and like talk to myself and look at the thumbnail and look at the page. And I needed to come up with a resolution to fix my problem. What I ended up doing was, sometimes when I'm looking at the whole picture, I realize if I'm looking at the big picture, sometimes it's really fucking daunting. So what could I do to take this big picture apart and make it easier and more palatable? How do I make it a little easier for myself? And I realized, okay, one thing that's blocking me is drawing the Globe Theater. I don't know how to draw the Globe Theater, and I sure as shit don't know how to put it inside, perspective-wise, a bigger picture. I don't know how I'm going to fit these characters in. I want these people's characters in here, and I want to pay homage to them, and I want to treat them with respect. But the way I had it laid out and the way I was drawing them, I was like, oh my god, this is so ugly. I'm doing such a bad job of drawing these people's characters. And I was mad at myself, so I was like, okay, it's hard for me to figure out how to draw a crowd and to draw anything in a crowd, so what can I do to fix that? Well, I could draw this one character separately, and I could draw these characters on the actual page. I'm okay with like having these characters in the foreground and doing the background. That I feel like I'm capable of doing, but these other components are definitely what's the problem. Because I have trouble like layering people in a crowd. So how I ended up doing this page was I decided to take it apart. I first ended up drawing the characters that I really wanted to have in the foreground because I knew my skill level was okay for that. And I was having fun. I wasn't drawing them well, but I was like, okay, I know I can do this though. I know I can draw these characters. I like the way they look. They have interesting features, and that's going to be fun. I know I'm going to have fun with that. So that's how I'm going to tackle this part of the page. Now, a more skilled artist isn't going to have to do this, okay, you guys? But I gotta work with myself. I gotta work with my skill level. So I did that, and I drew the background behind them with all the tents and shit and the trees, and I left a blank spot for the Globe Theater. Then I went and I knew that it was going to be easy to draw the other character. Oh, by the way, I'll put the characters down there. It was Sokum Mayapple from Oddly Vanilla. And it was, let's see, Sion from Keith and Jeremy's Magical Mysteries. And Roy from Boy in the Band. Oh, and there's also like a Erik from... I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I think it's Nixvir? Nixvir is how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm sorry if that's incorrect. All really interesting characters. Those are the ones that I knew I would be able to draw, and so I drew Sion separately because I did want him to be in the background, and I'm shit at layering characters, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to draw him separately, but these other characters I'll be able to draw together in this. And I actually drew Sion last because I was looking forward, like, I did the first 3 that I wanted to draw, and then I threw some of my own characters in there. Some of my own designs. Well, one. There's like a wizard dude, I guess. It's just like, I'm gonna put a wizard here. Okay? Those I found to be easy to draw. Oh, also Kana. I drew Kana on her own. I was like, I definitely want Kana to be in this picture, but initially I had her way too big. And I was like, this is a problem, because there's no way I can fit all this like this comfortably and actually have you see what the fuck's going on. So that was another part of the problem. That was another piece of the puzzle that I had to figure out. And then I was like, shoujo manga oftentimes will have like panels just kind of overlapping like the bigger scene. And I was like, well, what if I make it so that the background of this panel is see-through? So I started planning, like initially I wasn't going to have that see-through, but I was like, I'm going to have Kana smaller and up here so that we know she's looking at this scene, but I need to have her separately and she needs to be in her own panel. So initially I was just going to have that bar come down as like a rectangular panel, like a shoujo. It wasn't until later that I decided to have like the white part of the panel semi-transparent. That came later, but at any rate, I was like, I'm going to draw Kana separate because that's going to be fun. But I'm going to save Kana and Sion for last because those are two... It was kind of like a fun sandwich. I'm going to do the fucking Globe Theater, the hard part that I'm least least interested in doing. I'm going to do that in the middle so that I have something to look forward to. So, did the foreground characters first, and then I tackled the building. Now, initially I was going to just kind of use my reference and look at it and try to do it that way. I started it that way, and then I was like, starting to mess up. And I was like, I am not, again, it was a skill issue. I am not skilled enough to draw this building just by looking at it even. Oh my god, my practice on that is I'm so out of practice. I need to draw more buildings. I need to just go around and draw more buildings, but y'all know how time is. It's time, you know? Time is hard to find. Not just time, but like getting out physically and drawing buildings, especially in the hot ass summer. But I would use anything as an excuse to not have to draw a building, you guys. So my final resolution was to kind of think back, you know, what could help me draw this picture? And I don't know what the fuck sparked this memory, but I remembered in high school, my art teacher was amazing. His name was Mr. Sorrells. God rest his soul. He was one of the kindest, fucking chillest dudes. He was so fun. He was just a fun fucking teacher, you guys. It was hilarious. Like, he had a toupee. But what he would do with his class is like, I had no idea he had a toupee. But like, all of a sudden one day in class he started itching his head, and then all of a sudden he threw he made it look like the toupee like flew off his head, and he was like, it like scared the class and everything. It was so fucking funny. He was just an amazing person. He would do like hypnotism and shit like at like some of the rallies and stuff. You know, whenever you have like a big pep rally, sometimes he'd do like hypnotism, or he'd do that like the Illinois State Fair in Springfield. He was just such a cool guy, and he was I've got to say, he was one of the best fucking teachers I ever had. I loved the shit out of him. He taught us stuff. He taught us, like, my skill level in high school when I first entered his classes wasn't that great, but it was much better whenever we left. And he did it in a way where it's like, you know, I hear these horror stories about people who have asshole art teachers who refuse to let them draw anime characters because anime characters aren't art. Or they don't explain that, you know, you need to learn these basics first. But you know what he did? He let us have, like, free drawings. He was like, we're going to have these assignments. You have free drawings that you can submit whatever the fuck you want. Anything you want, you can do. Drawings, art, painting, whatever the fuck it is. Whatever we were learning that week. And then there were our assignments that we had to follow. We had to do, like, our realistic drawing. We had to do the ball, you know, with the shading and all that shit. And even then I didn't learn that very well. But I started to learn the basics from him. But he let us have that freedom to draw shit. And I drew, like, Murdoch and 2D on, like, canvases and painted them and shit. This is, like, over a course of a couple years. I took every art class there was that was, like, art, you know what I'm saying? And he didn't care. He gave me a good grade on it. You know, he didn't care that I was drawing cartoon characters, you know? I love gorillas. I was still in my Beatle phase, but I like gorillas because I liked Blur, because Blur was a fan of the Beatles. I was big into Britpop because of all the Beatle inspiration with a lot of the Britpop bands. Anyway, I digress. Oh my god, you guys, this is such a digression. So, a lot of the assignments with him was we got a picture of a human being that had a grid over it. And he had us not look at the picture of the person, but scramble up like before he moved on to like leaving the picture like solid, he had like things that were scrambled, that were like puzzles, where you had to draw this part in this square, but everything was unorganized, so you had no idea what the final picture was going to be. And that was to like help teach you like how to draw what you're seeing, because you really didn't know what the fuck you were drawing. You just needed to draw that little block of color here or that little art there or whatever, but it all needed to come together, right? So then later we would progress to like drawing people that weren't scrambled, you know, with the grid still on it, but you know, seeing, you know, tackling one grid at a time, one square at a time. So I don't know what the fuck charged my memory, what jogged my memory on that, but that's what I ended up doing to draw this. And yeah, I know you should, you know, maybe make your reference look a little different, but look, man, I had to get through this. And that's actually, that might be what I have going on in the background. I think I recorded it. Because that's how I ended up tackling it. I put a grid on my reference picture, and then I drew it that way. And I think it is still different, because I didn't care how perfect it was. It just needed to be good enough. I needed to get it done. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was something, whenever I have an art block and there's like a skill issue, something that you can try is maybe going back to the basics. If you have like basics that somebody taught you, like even if it's something like extending the pencil out in your hand and measuring things with the pencil with your thumb, that's something I do a lot whenever I'm like drawing from actual reference, or I used to do it a lot. But sometimes you gotta go back to the basics. You know, I love drawing just freehand, just not like having a reference, but sometimes if your art block is related to a skill issue, as it was with me, it might be good to go back to the basics and see if that helps you surmount that obstacle that you're having trouble with. And so that's what I ended up doing, and you can see I ended up with a passable globe theater, okay? It's good enough. Good enough. And it's different enough from the original, in my opinion. I freehand drew it. I guess if y'all want, I can try to find the reference that I used, if anyone wants it, but it's like, I still freehand drew it. It'd be like if I was physically out there looking at it. I just can't physically be there looking there, you know? But at any rate, that's how I ended up tackling this problem, and then I started putting the pieces together. Once I had my pieces, putting them together, that's what really helped get this fucking page done so that I can move along. And then, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, as I was putting Kana in there, I was like, oh my god, I did all this fucking work, and I'm blocking this fucking work that I drew in the background. I was so proud of these fucking tents and shit. They still look like shit, but they look fine to me. And here I've got this panel just blocking all that hard work I did. So I was like, what if I did this? What if I made that transparent? And so that's kind of how, as I started piecing things together and putting the page back together after taking it apart so that my dumb brain could fix this fucking problem. That's how I ended up putting it together and coming up with inspiration. And I was like, oh, I want to make sure this looks like a night scene. I want to make sure these lanterns glow. And yeah, anyway, that's how again, it's not good, but it's close enough for jazz, right? Well, actually, jazz is good. And I didn't really improvise. I really fucking heavily planned. But you get what I'm saying. I don't need to overthink this. So, those are my suggestions. At the end of the video, I'm just going to kind of go over them again. If it's a skill level issue, see if you can figure out how to take the problem apart and put it back together. Skip the page if it's stalling you. Go and draw something you like. Take a break if you need to. Take a break and sketch. Do something fun and enjoyable. Work on another project for a while. Reread your comic, your scripts, or both, your thumbnails. Rest and daydream. Think about your thing. Think about what you're working on. Think about how you could tackle it. If it's not a story, daydream about how you could be drawing it. And then finally work on your scripts if you're having a block. Those are my suggestions. If they don't work, that's fine. Again, if they don't work, it's not you that's the problem. It's the problem that's the issue, and you've got to figure out what works for you. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot. There's one more. Read things that inspire you. Read comics that inspired what you're working on, or look at artwork that inspires you. That's the other thing I forgot to write down here that I wanted to remember. Oh my god. Nothing gets me more excited and gets my ideas going than listening to music that is an inspiration to my comic, or reading the comics that inspire. I've reread Sailor Moon and Fushigi Yugi. Fushigi Yugi's got problems, but it's still mostly a fun comic. The first part. I don't like the rest of it. The first arc is the best. But at any rate, yeah. Things that will inspire you. Watch the stuff that inspired your comic. Go back and read the stuff that inspired your art or your comic or whatever. And that's the other thing that I do. If I'm really in a fucking slump, I will watch something. I'll watch Cowboy Bebop. I'll watch Samurai Champloo. I'll watch Carol and Tuesday. Hell, I even started rewatching The Stand. I read recently The Postman. I'd like to rewatch it again, but like doing those things really help get my creative juices going and get me inspired to like what inspired my comic to begin with, and I start working on it again. So, okay, yeah, that's my last one. Okay, I'm done now. This is a long video, but it needs to be long because sometimes, it's a long and winding road to figure out how to fix your art block. And if none of these suggestions work for you, but you have suggestions on what helps you, please put it down in the comments below. Pay it forward, help inspire other people, because the more ways people suggest to tackle an issue, the more we help each other, like, work on our art and express ourselves and share that with other people and make those connections. So I obviously don't have all the answers. Very obviously I don't. Some of you might have like different ways of thinking and tackling a problem. So if something has worked for you that's not on this list, please share it. Don't hoard that knowledge. I mean, not that you're hoarding it, but please feel comfortable to share it so that other people, maybe if my suggestions don't work, they can maybe try yours and, oh, holy fuck, that's how my brain works. That's what makes me get past my art block. I just found this thing that somebody else does, and that works for me now. So please share that with others so that we can kind of spread the solutions, spread the different troubleshooting options that we have out there. Okay, now I'm done for real. I'll see you all next video. Yeah, I'll see you all next video. Sorry, I have a lot on my mind right now. Peace and love, fare you well, and keep on trucking. Setting stamps. What the hell am I trying to say?